black storm coming. See the lightning strike. Black people rising.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Umoja Circle. My name is Keith Smokey Johnson, and for those of you who are new to the show, purpose of the Umoja Circle is to correct errors where errors are found and to introduce facts where we find that so many people are working on fiction when it comes to who we are as people of African descent. And one of those fictions that I want to talk about today is the way that we speak, okay? The topic is going to be about this. You might have heard the term Ebonics. Okay, some people call it Black English. I cringe when I hear that, and as we go through the show, I hope you'll understand why. There's a lot of misinterpretation and a whole bunch of miseducation. This comes out of trying to define the people that was kidnapped 400 years ago, 500 years ago, from the West. Most majority of us our ancestors throughout the diaspora came out of the west coast of Africa. And those people had their own way of communicating and speaking to themselves, no different than Asia did in China or Europe did, with the Germans and the French and the Danes and everybody had a language system, and so did those Africans who were kidnapped. This narrative of them being savages, or this narrative of them not doing anything for world history, is just to justify an evil that was in the world for hundreds of years, and the remnants of it still percolates in our culture today, I hate to say. And only through study that we recognize that who we are as people of African descent, and this is what the Umoja Circle is about. I believe that only through a clear knowledge of our history can we ever begin to appreciate and make sense of what we truly inherited as people of African descent. That's including this language system. It's through the study of great black scholars, like the person I'm going to introduce you to in this first part, part one. His name is Dr. Lorenzo Dow Turner. And of course, most of you never heard of him. But I have a little video clip that will introduce you to it. So I want to start off with you just listen to a few minutes and learn who this great scholar is, this great linguist, this Harvard-trained linguist, and how he was the father of putting the idea that those people that came off those enslaving ships, those under horror conditions, brought something with them that I feel even as more important than the music that we've created as African people, our language system that we use today, and many people don't even have a clue about it, thinking that it's some kind of bad English or some kind of English patois. No, it has nothing to do with English. First of all, let me introduce you to Dr. Lorenzo Dow Turner, and I'll be back. Well, guess what? Yes, I hope you know something about him now. This is the man going back 100 years ago in 1920s. This man went all throughout the Gullah Islands. In fact, he's considered the father of the study of the Gullah Geechee language, which is in throughout South Carolina. Many of you who live in places like Charleston know about the Gullah people and the Gullah Islands. Okay, on the islands like a Hilton Head and those areas where those enslaved people brought a language system that came out of, many of them say that it came from Sierra Leone. Again, he's the one who first came up with the idea that, now what these people we call enslaved people, what they brought was a unique language system. And like I said, just like our music was a great contribution to the world, we had a great contribution in the language that we speak. Let me show you another picture of him. This is the younger version of the brother. Okay, I mean, he taught at Howard University. All right, Harvard trained, and he, just like a lot of great scholars like I've introduced you on this show, I want you to understand that they understood who we are, that we were disconnected from our languages, our customs, our spiritual, and our worldview when we were brought over here. We were not brought over here to be anything else but a permanent working force, okay? That's the insidiousness. No human being on this planet should be disconnected from who they are. And him, like other great scholars I brought to you on this show, Dr. Ivan Baron Sertimer, Dr. Henry Clark, all these great, Dr. Sheikh Anta Diop, these great scientists, world-class scientists, have been doing their due diligence to put you here. That's the older version of Dr. Lorenzo Dow Turner. I think he died in 1971 or 72. But he dedicated his life to the language. He was a world-class linguist, and he saw that there was a lot of African words in the language of our ancestors, okay? And many of us who really thought that we're listening to English when they were in the house back when I was young, no, I realized that I was listening to, it wasn't English, coming from Trinidad. But even if you come from South Carolina, Mississippi, or the Gullah Islands, you are also hearing West African language system with English words put into it. Let's go on. This is the book that Dr. Lorenzo Dow Turner published with his findings. His 20-year studies, okay, 20 years. From, this was in 1949, he produced his findings. And we're still arguing about these things today. We have the most information, supposedly, with the internet, but yet we're still dealing with, I proved a couple of months ago that the Egyptians were black. I proved earlier last year that Africans were here in the Americas, and there's evidence of it. Okay, now I'm trying to show you that the language that you speak had nothing to do with English. There's nothing wrong with learning the standard English when you go to school, but imagine all our black children who go in there. See, the term Ebonics did not come out in 1973. The language has always been with us for hundreds of years. It just was given all kinds of minimized and given other kinds of names by those who didn't have our best interests and wanted to maintain the narrative of us being lesser than. Let's go on with this topic. Like everything else, the first thing you must understand is, what is a language anyway, okay? A language is nothing more than a regularized code spoken by a community of people. That's a language. It's not, there's no higher language, like you might see somebody might say on the Lord of the Rings, or the high language of the elves. No, all languages, okay, are nothing but a regularized code spoken by a group of people. Language is an evident feature of a community's life, okay? The language, what we call Ebonics, was spoken in the enslaved road, or based on the isolation of enslavement for 246 years, and then another 100 years of Jim Crow segregation. Black people in that community followed and spoke the language that was brought over by their ancestors who were enslaved, kidnapped people. They didn't just come here with empty minds. They had a language structure that they communicated on the west coast of Africa. Those countries, those ethnic groups that were kidnapped had thousands of years of history, languages, customs, all kinds of things that you had to communicate. It's regularized code. A language provides a people a direct link with its past. They had their history. They had their ways of talking about their past. It is a way in which the people look back at the thoughts of their ancestors. When you want to study what's happening, say, using the European term, Rome, okay? What would you do? All scholars would look at the writings of the Romans back in 2,000 years ago, okay? What did they say? What did they think? People of Africa, and the first writings occur on the continent of Africa, people. The earliest language system going back 3,000 years BC came out of Africa. So guess what? They spoke, they wrote, they had thoughts. This is what I want people to understand. And so did those people who were kidnapped and brought over here enslaved. People can only go back as far as the language they speak takes them. If you don't read your books, if you don't understand this history, how would you understand what I'm saying right now? I had to study books. I had to read things by Dr. Lorenzo Dow Turner or Dr. Molefi Kete Asante, who's another scholar that I want to introduce you later on, who talks about Ebonics and how we speak. Let's go on to this next one. Only with language can we also move forward in time, okay? When you have a plan, or when you have a business plan, don't you write it down? Or don't you have, when you talk to people and tell them what you plan to do next year, 2 years from now, there's a writing, you articulate it. That's what language do. And you're saying that millions and millions of people who were kidnapped did not have a language? Did not communicate their experience or plan for their village or plan for what they were going to do in their future? That we were some kind of ignorant, mindless people, which is the narrative that we had when we came over here that still permeates the so-called educational system. Language is a potent symbol of expression, playing an important role in developing a sense of identity for its people. Okay, we were just not mindless automatons that were brainless savages like we were portrayed. Okay, or the N-word, which you could find no country on this planet that defined as N-word land. Okay, I would use the word, but I'm not going to on this case. Let's go on to the next thing. A major function of any language system, like Ebonics, is the expression of a people's personal and cultural identity, okay? We are brilliant people. Okay, you take away our tradition as Fulani, as Hausa, as Igbo, all the people that we descend from, so we create, our own variations of those things in Slave Row or during the 60s when we were reconnecting to our past, And just like any of the world other languages, Ebonics signals to it who we are as a people of African descent in America, where we belong as a people, and our place on this earth as a people. That's what our language system do for us. All language speakers want to be the namers and definers and refiners of their own historical action. Every last one of those people who were brought over here and changed had a history, had a religion. Okay, Christianity was on that. Did not come out of Europe. It was corrupted by Europe for a couple of hundred years after the fall of the Roman Empire. But the origin of what you would call Christianity came out of Africa. The first Christians were Africans. So let's not get this thing twisted. And that requires a language. And the language was disconnected. And we are taught that we contributed nothing. If you read some of the earliest books that came before the 1960s, okay? But that's what Dr. Lorenzo Dial Turner did in that first book. He wanted to put the foundation that others worked on, that built upon, to say that, yes, the people that we call enslaved, I don't use the word slave, enslaved, that's because it's a condition, had a language. And the language was nothing to do with English. We'll talk about that as we go on. All language speakers want to be the namers and refiners of their own historical actions. That's what the Umoja Circle is. I speak the historical language of our people from our perspective. And only through facts can we create the idea that we find that a lot of people are working on fiction. Okay, let's go on to the next. Here's a little history of the term Ebonics. Again, Lorenzo Dial Turner back in the 40s and the 20s and the 30s when he went from the Gullah Islands throughout the Caribbean, all the way into South America, all across the west coast of Africa, where he found similarities in all the people throughout that diaspora, okay? That they all spoke. There were similarities in the sentence structures, in the phonetics of that. It was this brother, he's a psychologist, another scholar, Robert Williams, when he had a convention in 1973, where he mentioned the term Ebonics, which is the combination of two words, ebony and phonics, okay? Black sounds, to refer to us as the people, our black sounds. And you can hear it in our music. You can hear it in the rhythms. You can hear it how we sing the blues. You can hear when you hear a preacher say, Jesus, he's not speaking English. That's a phonetic thing that comes out of West African language system where we come from. Let's go on. This is the brother here. And we must give him props too. This scientist, okay, working on the information that Dr. Lorenzo Dial Turner brought to us in his great 20-year study. Let's go on. And this is the book that he put together in 1975, Ebonics, The True Language of Black Folks. Again, how many of you have been taught this? Here's the book in the 1970s. And every last majority of you, I'm sure, are ignorant to this truth, ignorant to this fact. Why were you not taught this when it comes to who you are as people of African descent? Why is this information kept from you? Why is the information of Dr. Lorenzo Dial Turner kept from you? Because it does not fit a particular narrative that keeps you in your place, in the place of a second-class citizen. We had to be second-class citizens. We had to be put in a position to justify a social horror that was perpetrated on people that look like us by people of European descent, and they cannot deal with that truth. Let's go on. Again, Ebonics is an African-American language system created and spoken for the past 400 years. Let me repeat that. For the past 400 years, it could be even 500, because the Spaniards brought us over themselves from the 1500s, way before the 1600s, okay, by kidnapped and enslaved African people, mostly from along the African continent's west coast, and passed on to the U.S. and their descendants. When people were in slave row, like I showed earlier, they did not speak. You had to be brilliant, okay, to create your own language system using the structures and the phonetics that are familiar to you. Let's go on to the next one. And this is what I am loyal to this. I have a cultural loyalty to this when I studied the work of Dr. Lorenzo Dow Turner. Okay, I have a language loyalty to Ebonics. Okay, you can't tell me I don't speak two languages. Most black folks don't recognize that they do. They think they speak in bad English, so they vilify children who never heard English. They hear English words, but the sentence structure and how they pronounce the name. I'm gonna tell you a little story. When I was young, I was born in Trinidad, in the West Indies, okay? And I never was able, me and my older sister, when we first started going to school, because I got here like I was two years old. So when I started school here in America, I could not say the letter TH, three. I would say tree. Okay, 1, 2, 3. And I remember the kids in school would laugh at me, okay? I wish I knew then what I know now, okay? And I wish they knew then what we know now about who we are, okay? Under the knowledge that was passed on by Dr. Lorenzo Dow Turner, most West Coast of African-speaking people did not pronounce TH, the, or rolling R sounds. It's not in their language system. So when you come over here, already indoctrinated into your own language system, and you're trying to pronounce these English dramatic words with the THs, and you come out tree, because I wasn't born 400 years ago, but that language was passed on from generation, like I said, community of speakers. And it's also in the South, it's also in the Gullah Island, it's also found with Spanish words or Portuguese words in Brazil. It's also found, that's what Dr. Lorenzo Dow Turner said. There is a language structure, no matter what English words are being used, what words are being used from Europe, but they are put these words into the structures that are West Africans, okay? Like I would say, a Ebonics speaker would say, let's see, me be working, okay? Me working today, me working tomorrow. That's an Ebonic term, me be working. But with the phonetics of West Africa, it also would say, me be working. That's a totally different thing. I'm working hard. I'm working hard this Christmas holiday. If I'm in a business that the workload increase, me be working. That's Ebonics, but we are conditioned to believe that's bad English, because in West African culture, and in some Spanish, if you say "que," the way you inflect the phonetics is a different terminology. But we know about that language system since Spain is a European foundation for Spanish, but we have been conditioned to believe that nothing came out of Africa, but something is done. And one thing that's most important that I want you to understand is our unique language that in 1973 was given the name Ebonics. Let's go on. Okay? Again, Ebonics is closer to the morphology of many West African language systems, whose syntax, the structure of the sentence, that's the syntax, okay? And the phonetics, like I was saying, how you sound the words, are similar to West African language systems such as Yoruba, Fulani, Mandingo, Akan, Wolof, and so many others along that West Coast language. Let me before might stop here in a little bit, but I want to give you a little story. Let's keep that image out so people can read that over and over what I talked about. Let's say, the Marvel universe took me to another alternate universe. And in that universe, Japan was the country that went and captured slaves. But the Japanese in that universe didn't take their ships to Africa, they took their ships to Europe. And who did they capture? They captured a Frenchman. They captured an Englishman. They captured somebody from Norway. They captured people from Finland, from Czechoslovakia. They all look white, okay? French, German-speaking people, all right? All European people. They all look and put them on boats and then brought them to Japan and then forced them to use Japanese words. Okay? That's what happened to us as people of African descent. That's the insidiousness. But the brilliance of our people is that we created this. Okay? We used the West African sentence structures, okay, of how the language that we came, and then we dropped in English words. So when you hear us speak from Slave Row using English words, but people laugh at us because they think that is bad English. No, they created a new language to communicate with them like any other creators of language systems throughout the entirety of humankind. I'll never understand a people like Dr. Molefi Asante would say, who would laugh of the language of their ancestors, their grandparents, their great-grandparents. We have some issues as Black people. We got to reconnect to that past, that understanding, okay? But in the meantime, as always, I'm going to stop right here and then I'll continue this on part 2. So until next time, I hope you learned something, and we'll continue. I'll just say peace, hotep, bye-bye.